Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Racing Mentor Sponsorship Podcast. You're here with me, Jess Shanahan, and we also have Toby Trice here. We're going to start these episodes slightly different from now on. So starting today, we are going to share facts about ourselves. So Toby's going to share one about me. I'm going to share one about him. Some of them are bizarre. They should be stuff that you don't already know about us. But the idea is that it'll help you get to know us better. So Toby's fact of the day is that he used to sim race on a beanbag, so no fancy setup, used to sim race on a beanbag, but secured a number of world records on it.
Yeah, thanks for tuning back in, guys. This is a bit of fun. Jess's fun fact is that she once knocked the wing mirror off a Rolls Royce while driving through London in a press car. OMG.
I knew you were going to go with that one. Okay, so today's episode is all about subject lines, like how you can craft a great subject line to catch the attention of sponsors. But before we go into that, I wanted to talk about the recent British touring car race that happened over the weekend and how there were no spectators there, and kind of what this means for, for racing drivers who have sponsors, because it's kind of a tricky time. And I don't know if you agree with me, Toby, but I feel like it's the right decision pandemic wise.
Yeah, I think so, Jess. I mean, the kind of planning up to that point, I think British Touring Car's done an amazing job in making sure kind of they were, as COVID safe as possible at the event. But the kind of decisions were taken out of their hand really last minute, and it was super tricky.
Yeah, and I really feel for racing drivers who have decided to continue on with this season, because a lot of them, not all of them, a lot of them are reliant on sponsorship. And you suddenly cut out a really valuable part of the sponsorship mix, with hospitality and being able to actually go along to the races. So I'm curious as to kind of what you guys out there think about this. I mean, obviously it's disappointing if you're a fan, but I think it's even more difficult if you're an actual driver.
Yeah, completely. I mean, it's the reason why I pulled out of my championship this year, Jess, because I couldn't offer the full value in terms of what I was offering to the sponsors I had on board. A big part of what I kind of offer is a lot around the kind of corporate entertaining side and having guests there. And that gives me that additional sort of ROI that I'm searching for with sponsors. So we made a decision quite a while ago to kind of pull out. And this has just reinforced that the decision I made was quite correct, because without having fans there to engage with your brand, having guests there to actually kind of enjoy the day, etc., then yeah, it's really hard to give that full return that you'd like to give to your sponsors.
Yeah, exactly. So any drivers who are in this position where they are, stuck at a race when they can't bring along, guests and things, feel free to post in the sponsorship group or drop me an email on jess@racingmentor.com and I'll see if I can help you guys out. I don't want you to kind of be stuck in this situation where you either have to refund sponsors when you've already paid for racing, or if you're in a situation where you don't think you can provide that value. I'm quite good at thinking outside the box, so I might be able to come up with a solution. So let me know how we can support you guys, and we'll do our best.
Yeah, and I'd love to hear from you guys as well, the ones that are racing this year. What are your sponsors' thoughts? I know I've spoken to a couple of drivers and their sponsors are absolutely cool with the fact they can't attend the races. And I think that's fantastic. And it just shows kind of what additional support that sponsor's given you, really. But yeah, feel free to drop that all into the comments at the Racing Mentor group page. And we'd love to hear from you.
So let's go into talking about subject lines. I want to just go a bit more specific with these podcast episodes, so we give like little nuggets of advice for people who are working on one specific thing, rather than covering a topic broadly. So I feel like subject lines is a really great place to start, because I've experimented with these over like my whole career, because I've always been doing something salesy. So even when I first started a marketing agency like 8 years ago, I had to work out how to create good subject lines that would catch the eye of someone that I wanted to work with. But obviously there was so few resources out there for this back then. I kind of just had to learn myself. So I've kind of gone through this whole process of working out for a marketing agency, then doing sales for clients, then trying to get other projects that I was working off the ground. Like I was working for a small e-commerce startup. And then obviously going into sponsorship, helping out friends, and then, on a slightly more professional level with the race team and now Racing Mentor. There's kind of lots that I've learned over that time, and I'm going to kind of share this with everyone who's listening. But Toby, what have your experiences been of like trying to work out how to get those subject lines right?
Yeah, I've had quite an interesting experience with them, really. I mean, I'm nowhere near as experienced as you are, Jess, but, I started this program with you, well over 18 months ago now, before I started emailing sort of potential sponsors. And in the early days, I was getting very little return on the kind of emails I was sending out. And I think a lot of it was down to the fact that my subject lines were terrible. Sometimes I wouldn't put a subject line in. Sometimes I'd write one and it was a bit half-hearted. And I didn't get very little response. And I've kind of lent on your experiences and your expertise over the last sort of year or so. And it's really enhanced the kind of return I've had back on the emails. I've had a lot more replies. I've had a lot more conversations off the back of my emails. So it's been interesting to see kind of the small changes I've made and what results I've got from it, which has allowed me to talk to more sponsors and land more sponsorship deals. So, that's been quite a quick change for me. I'm still learning. It's still kind of an experience of, testing things out and seeing what does and doesn't work. But I'm really looking forward to discussing all this kind of through today's podcast.
So what do you think makes a great subject line?
I think it's got to be something that grabs the attention without being over the top and too clickbaity, so that it kind of deters people from reading it. But it's got to grab the reader's attention. And I think as long as you've got kind of, from my experience for sure, I think the times where I've kind of given them almost like a hook, something that's, okay, that's interesting, I need to read on. A bit like a news headline, you need to be able to read it, and within that one sentence or those few words that is in the headline, does it make you want to read on? And I think that's what you need to try and achieve with a good subject line. What do you think, Jess?
I completely agree. It's all about piquing that interest enough that makes them want to open the email, but it also has to be conversational enough that they're not like, oh, another sales email, and then just like drag it straight to spam or trash or whatever. So I think that it's actually really tough to get this right, because what works for one person might not work for another prospect that you're emailing. So it's definitely a case of trial and error. And I think if you're in the habit of sending out, pitch emails on a regular basis, experiment. So try one that's, a bit more salesy, then maybe do one that's just an emoji, and then maybe you do one that just says hi, and just kind of try and work out what works for your audience, because obviously someone that is targeting lifestyle businesses might use different subject lines to someone who is targeting big corporates. So I think experimentation is kind of key for this. I kind of want to talk about the ones that we've both used that have worked. I have a few, but do you want to start with yours, Toby? Just give some examples, both on the press side and I think the sponsorship side would be helpful.
Yeah, so I've got a few examples on my notebook, and I kind of was unsure what ones to share today, because I've had so many different sort of examples over the sort of past year. But I wanted to start off with one of the ones that got me one of my press deals, because as much as this is for sponsors, it also is really handy to have to get your kind of journalists and people in the media interested in your story, so that they open it and then publish your story. And I sent this one out to a newspaper, a local one, which landed me a regular news piece in my local news, which was fantastic. And it was just off the back of some success. But I kind of used a spin on words with my surname. So this one was Trice on the podium twice. So it was kind of a bit of a play on words. But the journalist clicked open, was like, oh, this is so cool. What a cool headline. You've got a cool name. And it kind of spurred this conversation where it actually was, not too much about the actual press release, but we got chatting, got networking. And they then said, look, can we work together? I think we've got some cool things that would help me out. It'd be great to have your story featured. So that was one of the press releases that went out, and then multiple went out after that result, which was absolutely fantastic. Have you got one you want to share, Jess?
So I like just really, really simple ones. So with sponsorship, if I've done maybe a little bit of relationship building, but I'd also do this for a cold pitch as well. Just something really simple, like a quick question, because someone will click on it and go, oh, what's the question? And then I will do a really short email that's just like we talked about, like I've talked about in the relationship building webinar and in various things that I've done, going into just really brief detail about something that I enjoyed that they did, a question about it, and then a line about who I am and a sign off. So no great, kind of like throwing myself into a pitch, but literally just a quick question. Because if you put a quick question and then have 12 paragraphs about who you are, they're not going to read it. But if it's quite clear, like what your question is and why you're asking it, and then a line about who you are, you're probably going to get a reply. And if that question is, we're going off subject lines here, as I knew I would, if that question is easy to answer, but also gives you an insight into their business, like, how have they found trade shows this year? That kind of thing. It can kind of give you an idea of how you can pitch in the future, but you're opening those lines of communication.
And I think with that one as well, you're kind of setting a tone of, for someone that's busy that you're potentially emailing, you're setting just a quick tone of I just got a quick question, grab their attention, and then it just opens up the conversation for future discussions. But I think that's really effective, Jess. I actually haven't used that one yet. I think that's something I'll put in the little black book to try at some point. But just on the fact of someone that you're already talking to, a lot of my kind of email leads, if you like, come from social media. I'm very, very active on chatting on LinkedIn, Instagram, Twitter, and start actually my sponsorship conversations there, which is quite an informal place to do so. So when I actually then go on to email them with a bit more specifics around kind of what I'm offering, etc., my subject line then becomes a little bit more kind of chatting, a little bit more me. So I've actually done subject lines where, for example, if I've spoke to a sponsor on Instagram, I've now got their email address and we're happy then to converse and arrange a meeting, etc. on email. I've just put before Instagram follow up with a little emoji, and it might have been the emoji I used on the Instagram chat at some point. And it's got a response straight away. I mean, obviously, of course, they're going to reply to me because we've been chatting before, but it just continues the tone onto email. And my emails tend to be quite chatty anyway. So, yeah, that's worked really well for me.
Nice. And I do something kind of similar if I've found someone on LinkedIn. So not if I've already chatted to them, because I've been doing some research lately into whether people prefer to be contacted on LinkedIn or email for relationship building kind of stuff. And I found that everyone is just a bit wary of LinkedIn messages. So I thought, I'll try emailing them, because once you're connected with someone, it's so easy just to grab their email address from their contact info on their profile. So I sent 4 relationship building cold messages the start of this week. And I got, so one of them said, hello from a fellow entrepreneur. The other was, loved your Monday motivation. One was, how's the podcast going? So, and they all got replies. So I sent 4, I got 3 replies. So I think that just that really kind of chatty, personalized kind of subject line really works, because they know instantly that you're not spam or sales or something not interesting. You're directly kind of targeting them with a specific, topic or something that is relevant to them. So they can tell that you've looked at their profile or read an article that they've done or whatever it might be.
And I think that comes back to kind of one of the research podcasts we spoke about before, about understanding the sponsor you're talking to and understanding their tone and how they are as a company or a person, so that it kind of opens up that to actually have that quite informal way, Jess. I think because if you've done your research and you understand what that business's tone's like, it does allow you to kind of be a bit more kind of yourself almost. You don't have to be quite so formal, and you're then kind of on their terms, on their language, on their way, and it definitely gives you more results. We've spoke about this a lot in the past, yes, about kind of making sure that you're doing everything you can to engage with that person, because what you're offering is amazing, and if they're not reading your emails, then they don't even know how good your offering is. But
exactly,
like the subject line, it just shows how important it is.
Yeah. It's your first, sorry, Toby, it's your first chance to make an impression. And if you don't, you've kind of ruined that first great chance.
Yeah, absolutely. But don't be afraid to experiment, because the only way you'll know in the future is just keep trying and keep experimenting and seeing kind of where it goes.
Mm.
But just on the note of, understand your audience and whether they're formal or informal. I've actually just recently agreed a meeting date with a potential sponsor, which is amazing. And this has come back on the back of just one email with quite a formal client. And the subject line was generating business with positive press. So when I was doing my research with this sponsor, that they were talking a lot about how they generate business and what they're doing to generate business, but how much they love being part of really good news stories and having that associated with their brand. So there was two clear goals that within 5 words I've put in the subject line,
Mm.
and I got a response back within about an hour, which is actually really good. Usually it's a
Amazing.
few days, and it was the director of the company has said, that sounds amazing. What, because obviously he's then opened the email and read exactly why I've sort of said that as an offering. And yeah, I'm now kind of in a process at the moment of sorting out a meeting to hopefully meet these properly and actually land a deal, which would be absolutely fantastic. So hopefully I can come back to you guys in a few weeks' time and say, well, this subject line actually worked because I've got a sponsorship deal. But we're halfway there.
I think it's half the battle, isn't it? Getting a just getting a reply sometimes.
Yeah, definitely. And don't feel disheartened sometimes, because, sometimes people, you don't get replies because people are busy. Don't think what you're writing is terrible. Just experiment and get something out there. And hopefully some of these tips today will allow you to do that.
Yeah, so let's go through some subject lines that people can kind of try out. I want to go back to the one that you just mentioned, so something that's goal based. I really like the achieve sponsor's goal with thing that sponsor wants to help them achieve their goal. Obviously, this is completely down to research. And just so you guys know, all of these subject lines that we talk about today for you guys to try out, you can get at the podcast notes at blog.racingmentor.com like a day or two after you hear this. So just keep an eye out for that. So yeah, I think something goal-based like that, like you just said, Toby, about, here is how you can increase your sales through positive news, through fan interaction, all that kind of stuff. Use what you've learned about a sponsor from research and use that as kind of your main hook to get them to click, because if you know that they want that thing, of course they're going to click.
Absolutely.
So I've got a few more. So I really like quick question. I think that works really well. I think it's short, it's to the point, and it's chatty enough that I think someone would just click it just to see what's going on. But there are variations on that. So you might be a bit more specific. You might say, oh, I have a quick question on your marketing process or your products or something like that. Again, experiment with this. Try being more specific. So try a quick question about something, and try just a quick question. And kind of on a similar line, I like, are you free for a quick chat? Now, it doesn't necessarily work as well with very, very high up busy people, but it might work for smaller businesses. I like to go a bit more specific with this one. So I'll often put something like a quick chat with your experiences with racing drivers, like if I'm pitching Racing Mentor, or are you free for a quick chat about your products on Monday at 11? And again, being really specific here, because they'll look at that and go, well, I am free Monday at 11. Talking about my products is interesting because it means I might make a sale. I'll read the email. So you've already kind of got them in this mindset of, yes, I'm free at this time, or maybe even no, I'm not. I'll get back to them, tell them when I am free. So they're ones I really like. You can do something similar as well with just like meeting on Wednesday, question mark. I think almost being presumptive with your subject lines can work really, really well, because it exudes this kind of air of confidence that means that someone will go, okay, yeah, I'll see what this person's got to say. What else do I have? I'm not going to go through this whole list because there's loads. So if you know, for example, something about a potential sponsor, maybe they're a fan of a certain series or a fan of another sport, or you have something in common like that, greetings from a fellow whatever would really work. So like I really like hello from a fellow entrepreneur if I'm talking to other entrepreneurs,
Yeah, that's nice.
because there's suddenly that synergy there. And I think we want to speak to people that are like us. That's just the natural human way. We are naturally tribal. So I think that one works really well, especially at this kind of time. If it's someone that's working from home, I think we're all just a bit lonely. I'd be desperate to hear from other entrepreneurs, even if they were trying to sell me something.
Yeah, absolutely. Just a quick chat, please.
Yeah. So what do you think of these ones so far, Toby? Have you used any of these, or are these sparking any other ideas for subject lines?
Yeah, I mean, we spoke a lot before about kind of subject lines, and I've said on this podcast many times I'm not the best writer, so I've lent on your expertise quite a lot. But I love the kind of quick chat, are you free, that kind of stuff, because naturally that's how I am. I'm very chatty, and I find the chatty ones work. Just on my experiences of someone that's received email from marketeers and other people that are trying to sell me things, the amount of times I've deleted them quickly when I've just seen like, hey, claim you're free, or something really like salesy, and I've just gone, oh, I'm not interested, I've got time. But when you find a common ground, and this is when your research is really important, but when you can find a common ground quickly, and pop that on a subject line, that person's going to be way more lent towards actually opening that email and reading what you've got to say. So I think just on this whole podcast, really, the chatty side works most. I don't want to stop people doing the professional ones, because I think there is a place for that. But you've got many wins from it. I've got a lot of wins from quite loose, kind of chatty, almost presumptive type subject lines, and they've both got as results. So I think we've both figured that definitely works more than perhaps the more corporate kind of structured, like really specific salesy type ones. Do you think?
Yeah, I completely agree. I'm just looking at my emails because I get loads of sales pitches. I just want to read you two that absolutely do not work. I'm not even going to open them. So the first one is ways to sales for feelingstylish.co.uk. Now, Feeling Stylish is my fashion blog that I don't really use anymore. Right. So firstly, what? That doesn't even make sense. But even if it was make sales for Feeling Stylish, it shows they have done zero research. Like none. I don't even sell anything on that blog. It was a place to post pictures of myself like 10 years ago. And then another one is just health and fitness app services provider. Okay, well, if I needed a health and fitness app, would I click that? Probably not. I want to know what that app can do for me, and based on my goals, which is not to make sales. But if it was something like engage with your fans in a more meaningful way, I'd be like, oh, that sounds interesting. I'd click, and then I might at least read that email, but at least I've clicked it. I'm not just going to do a checkbox and send it straight to trash. So I think it's so much better to be specific and make it seem like your emails are coming from a real person. I know from those two lines that they don't know who I am, what I do, or anything like that. But they have also sent this email to 20,000 other people,
and it's really obvious, isn't it? That
yeah. Whereas I think if you're sending an email with a subject line that specifically references something that potential sponsor has done, they're not suddenly going to be like, oh my god, a sales email, and delete it. They're going to think, oh, this is from someone I know, which is exactly what you want to get from your subject lines. So I'll just give you a couple more. This might be one for you to use, Toby. Heard you like dogs.
Heard you like dogs. Love it.
Yeah. Again, creating that commonality between two people. If this is a CEO that's always photographed, traveling with his or her dog, that could be such a good subject line. And then you can talk about your love of dogs. Maybe even include like a little, here's me and my dogs video. Just to kind of showcase, but it's all about relationship building, but you can bring it back to business because you don't want to be irrelevant. So you can hook them with some, something you have in common, but make sure that the email itself does have a purpose. Otherwise they'll be like, great, thanks, and not reply. So you need to give them a reason to reply as well.
Absolutely, and it just shows the importance of experimentation here, Jess, because most people wouldn't have actually thought to talk about dogs during a sponsorship pitch email or your conversation with them. So it just proves that the importance of experimentation works. And we all know Jess is so creative at thinking outside the box and actually getting ideas out there and trying things. And it just shows that, there is success out there from really kind of what may seem as a wacky idea can be the best result for you.
Yeah.
And I'm sure you'll agree, Jess, that, just experiment. Anyone that's out there listening to this that is struggling a little bit with what to write in their subject line, have a go, take Smith's advice, have a go, try things and see what works. And we would really love to hear your results in the group page, because it'll be just fascinating to hear what you've tried and what's landed you conversations with sponsors.
Yeah, and take a look in the group, because I'm starting discussions around all of these podcast topics. So we've created one around subject lines as well. So you come in, find that post. You can do a search in the group if it's not at the top. Find that post your subject lines, or post ones that have and haven't worked for you. I can give feedback. We can chat about them. We are a community and we want to help each other. So go to the group and find that. But I just want to do like maybe two more. So these are kind of similar. So love your work and impressed by what you've done. Flattery goes a long way, especially at these early relationship building stages.
Very true.
So they're two that I really like. And then you can go into more detail in, the first line of your email, talk about, what it is that you like that they've done. You could also use something like impressed, huge fan, something like that. It depends on your relationship with the business. There are a few businesses that I would absolutely go to saying, I'm a huge fan of your work. And I think it's fine to do that. I think there's a bit of psychology involved there as well, because any business owner will think, well, obviously I want to work with someone who's going to give me praise and tell me how great I am. You don't necessarily assume that the opposite is true when you don't put something like that in your subject line. But just knowing that you'll kind of get that feedback from someone is really nice. And it instantly creates this kind of positive relationship, even if you don't work together immediately.
Yeah.
And I want to give one real example of something that hasn't worked for me that I would have probably thought would have worked. So back when I was pitching sponsorship for Racing Mentor for Motorsport Days Live last year, I got all my stats and I realized that we're reaching 150,000 people a month. Probably even more now. So big numbers. And I thought, that's so impressive. That's like, over 1 million for the year. So I thought I'll go into a pitch and I'll use my subject line to really hook them with that fact. Do you want to reach 150,000 potential customers this year? Absolute silence. And I realize it's because people think, well, that's a crazy number. I don't believe it. Whereas if I'd used something like a quick chat about how you can reach more customers through motorsport, it might have garnered a bit more attention. And actually the sponsors I did get were very, very chatty subject lines. Yeah. So-and-so introduced me, can we chat? Or are you free to talk about your products? That's one that I've used there. So just bear in mind that your subject line isn't necessarily your main hook. It might nod to it, but it doesn't need to be the main big thing, because people won't click on it. They'll think it's fake or salesy or not for them. So just bear that in mind, because I've made that mistake and I want to pass my learning on to you guys.
Yeah, and I've got one that I got a radio silence from as well. I kind of was on a similar thing, Jess, but the subject line I used was sports star battling infertility. Are you available? And I was like, this is going to get me a response, 100%. That went radio silent completely. So perhaps people saw that as it seemed very over the top, maybe. And it's exactly what I'm doing, and it's exactly why I'm kind of racing. But perhaps that was best left for something that was a bit more content based in the actual email body rather than the subject line, because I didn't get a response back. So there's one to share.
I think the subject lines really have to be a tease.
Yeah.
So not quite enough information to give everything away, but like enough that they go, oh, I wonder what this is about. So like in that instance, Toby, you could have put something like, racing driver battling a challenge or a personal challenge. Are you free to chat? Or maybe include the hook there as well, like a goal there. So like maybe talk about racing driver battling a challenge. Do you want to talk about how I can help you reach your goals through something? Obviously depends on the sponsor, but there's ways you can kind of go, well, that is my main hook. Racing driver battling infertility or sports star battling infertility. But the subject line should kind of nod to that. Do you want to hear about the challenges I face as a racing driver? I'd love to talk to you about, your experiences with something else.
Yeah, because that becomes then more chatty.
Yeah.
And that could have got me a better response. So
Yeah.
I might resend an email with a different subject line.
Try
It's been about a month and see what happens. I'll report back.
Yeah, please do. So I just want to kind of hammer home the importance of experimenting with these again, because it really, really does vary from sponsor to sponsor. So try something that you haven't tried yet and start to build up a bank of subject lines or, similar subject lines that work for you. And then you can obviously stop using the ones that don't, and you can make your whole pitch process much more efficient if you've got like 3 great subject lines that work.
Yeah, give it a shot, and we'd love to hear back and find out what you guys been up to.
And don't forget that you can go to blog.racingmentor.com, look for podcasts. This is episode 9. If you find this episode, you'll find the podcast notes where you can download all of these subject lines to try out for yourself.
Mega. Wow, Jess, we're in episode 9. That's nuts. How quickly that's gone as well.
That's why I paused. I had to double check. I was like, it can't be episode 9 already.
That's crazy. It only seems 5 minutes ago we was planning this podcast with here's our ideas for the next few weeks and this is what we're going to do. And now we're here at episode 9 and it's wicked, and it's so great to hear your feedback from everyone that's listened to this and tuned in, because it means a lot to us, and it just shows that what we decided to do with this podcast was absolutely right. Super exciting times.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's talk about episode 9's driver of the week then.
Yeah, our 9th driver. No, not our 9th driver of the week, because we didn't start it straight away. But this one's a pretty cool one. Jess, this is one for you to introduce, because you introduced her to me, and I'm super excited about this one.
Yeah, so Cami Sturch is our driver of the week. Now, she is a Fordzilla sim racer. And she's got serious skills. She's got a great YouTube channel, which you can find at Cami Racing. But I actually want to talk about her incredible skills as a graphic designer. Now, I commissioned her to design some art for the Racing Mentor office, which you might have seen on my Instagram. She creates these gorgeous pictures of race cars, and she's got a few available on her Etsy shop that are, classic Formula One cars. But I got her to design a Racing Mentor Porsche 911, because that's what I'm into. But she also does kind of logos. She does Twitch graphics. She does all sorts of stuff. She is just incredible. And she's also kind of an ambassador for Racing Pride as well. So she's doing really good things in the industry. And I think she's someone that you should all follow. And if you're ever looking for someone to kind of support you on graphics or anything like that, she's the person to hit up. So across social media, she's Cami Racing, CAMMIE Racing. Look at her YouTube if you want to kind of see what she's about and what she's done. And yeah, if you look at the Racing Mentor Instagram, you'll also see some of the stuff that she's done for me. So she's actually for some of my other brands, the new ones that have like popped up during lockdown, of which there have been many. She's done some logos and things for me, and she's just very, very professional, but also so good at getting those little design nuances that you would just never think about if you were trying to do a logo for yourself in Canva or on Photoshop. So congratulations, Cami. You are our driver of the week.
Yeah, massive congratulations. And just to add in there, her illustrations of the Formula One cars are utterly insane. I remember seeing one of her tweets of like, here's a little bit of progress. And I was like, wow, that looks awesome. Must be almost done. And then another day went past and was like, I finished it. Here's the final piece. And I was just like, oh my God, it's almost like photographic quality illustrations of like sort of top down Formula One cars of history. And they blew my mind. I was just like, that's so cool. I want my race car like that one day. And I'm sure I'm going to get her to commission a piece of art of one of my future race cars, because yeah, properly incredible. But yeah, great, like you say, Jess, a great ambassador for Pride. Can we also mention that she's an amazing sim racer as well? She's recently picked up a drive with Fordzilla, and I think that's a massive achievement, because to become a team driver of a team so big is a huge deal, right? And she's pretty handy on iRacing. She's got a fantastic record, but she plays it down. And
Yeah.
I think by her own admission, she plays it down because, she's like, oh, I'm okay. I do well. But then I'm like watching how consistent she is and the results she's getting and actually who she's competing against. Bearing in mind we're competing against some of the best sim racers and even professional drivers in that world. And she's holding her own and doing incredible things. And I think one day her dream is to race a real car. And I wish her all the very best for her future in sim racing, her business, and fingers crossed one day she becomes an actual race driver in the real world. But let's see.
Yeah. So if you guys want to follow her Etsy store is Cami Racing. She's Cami Racing on Instagram. And you can search Cami Racing wherever you like to do social media. She's also on YouTube. So if you want to see some of those sim racing skills, she does really entertaining videos. So definitely go check her out.
Yeah, fantastic. Congratulations, Cami.
So thank you everyone for listening again to the Racing Mentor Sponsorship Podcast. We've got a really great one for you guys next week. So please subscribe to the podcast and leave us a review if you've been enjoying it, or drop us a message. We love kind of hearing your feedback. So for now, thank you very much for listening, and we will see you next week.
Yeah, thank you so much, guys, and take care. We'll catch you next week.